Good evening. It's the latest in a bizarre case from Rutherford County. An off-duty, out-of-town police officer faces charges after pulling his service gun on a driver in a road rage incident.
Tonight, the victim is speaking to News Channel 5's Jason Lamb and to leaders in the small town of Decherd.
He's screaming at him right now.
The controversy surrounds what a passerby caught on camera last month. What the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office says was an off-duty police officer from the Franklin County town of Decherd involved in a road rage incident off I-24. The Sheriff's Office says that off-duty officer, Matthew Ward, drew his department-issued handgun on Ilya Kovalchuk.
Get on the ground! Police!
He just approached me and just held the gun in my face on me to get on the ground and yelling at me just to get on the ground and that he's a cop, that he's on duty 24/7.
Hey. Not on duty. You can't. Doesn't matter. I am on duty 24/7.
The Sheriff's Office arrested Ward for aggravated assault, and the Decherd Police Department allowed Ward to resign. But Kovalchuk still wants answers from the police.
I tried to contact them, I believe, multiple times, never heard anything back from the police department, just to see how he even got employed in the first place when this all went down.
But the Decherd police chief told us today the department hasn't made any final conclusions about what was captured on camera.
We didn't get any of the evidence. We don't know what happened. We were told that there was some kind of a situation between him and the former officer.
Have you seen the video?
I do not watch things that are on media like that. I don't do it.
Would you like to see?
I do not want to watch it. Because how many people, was it just one video? Was there 10? I don't know. What if there's a video that comes out and it says something totally different than what that video says? That's what I'm seeing across the country now.
What's the actual emergency?
I'm on Shiloh and Medical Center. There's a guy with a gun drawn right here in a Holiday Inn. He's pointing at a man. He's screaming at him right now.
We continue our deep dive tonight into the job history of a former police officer in the small town of Decherd.
Last month, Matthew Ward was arrested and charged with aggravated assault for what happened right here. Deputies say the off-duty officer, who was dozens of miles away from Decherd, pointed his police-issued handgun at a driver after a road rage incident in Rutherford County. Today, News Channel 5 received former Officer Matthew Ward's training records from a police department in Florida after we asked the department for them.
And amazingly, police down in Florida say Decherd police never asked them for those records before hiring Ward. Our Jason Lamb looks into the red flags that police training officers raised in a story you'll only see here on News Channel 5.
24/7.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Police!
Publicly available training records for former Decherd police officer Matthew Ward detail the red flags that police trainers noted at Ward's last police job. Long before the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office says Ward held a private citizen at gunpoint with his police-issued service weapon while out of town and off-duty during a road rage incident last month.
Not on duty. You can't. Doesn't matter. I am on duty 24/7.
This cop's saying he's on duty 24/7.
Get on the ground!
This week, one Decherd city alderman questioned the city's police chief about why he didn't look more into Ward's past at the Fort Walton Beach Police Department in Florida.
Ross, did you contact this officer's previous employer?
No.
No? Why?
Because he it wasn't actually an officer there. He was going through his field training officer program.
But if I applied for a job at Walmart, they would contact my previous employer, even if I was there for training.
The police chief told us when they call a police officer's previous employer, they're only allowed to ask two specific questions.
There was no form filled out where we got it notarized where we could ask questions anything different than did you work here and would you rehire that person? And since he's not actually got an extensive work history in law enforcement, we didn't do that. That's my answer.
But this week, News Channel 5 filed a Freedom of Information Act request under the Florida Sunshine Law, asking to see public records that anyone, including the Decherd police chief, could have also asked for. Fort Walton Beach Police sent us those training records today. They reveal that before joining the Decherd Police Department, Ward attended a police academy while working for the Enterprise Police Department in Alabama. While there, he got into an argument with a fellow trainee who came at Ward and threatened to find him at his home. The report says Ward then said something similar to, quote, "If you come to my hometown, I'll kill you." And the Enterprise Police Department fired Ward. He then went to the Fort Walton Police Department, where the reports say Ward started out with kudos from his trainers. Ward arrived early and with all required accoutrement, one comment read. Ward has an upbeat attitude and will to be at work. But the reports show things went downhill from there. Ward is very dependent on the field training officer and lacks either self-confidence or drive to push forward on his own, one trainer said. And after getting multiple low marks in assessment categories like knowledge of criminal procedure and decision-making, Ward's trainer said, "Ward has shown this profession is not for him. Ward is unable to meet the standards of the field training evaluation program. Ward has shown to have no integrity and cannot be truthful. Ward has been given all of the tools and training necessary for the job, and Ward continued to show little dedication to the profession." All information that Fort Walton Beach Police confirm the Decherd Police Chief did not have before deciding to hire Ward. Jason Lamb, News Channel 5.
Thank you, Jason. Now, we want you to know the steps we're taking to bring you all sides of this story. We've made several attempts to contact former Officer Matthew Ward through both phone calls and text messages. He has not returned those so far. We've also forwarded those training reports to the Decherd Police Chief, who has also not yet responded with any further comment. Of course, we'll let you know if they do respond. We also want to give you the opportunity to look at those training documents for yourself, and you can find them in the in-depth article we posted right now on newschannel5.com. Good evening, everyone. Why didn't the police chief in the town of Decherd look into the checkered past of former police officer Matthew Ward before he was hired?
Rutherford County deputies say he held a private citizen at gunpoint while off duty and out of town near one of the busiest roadways in the state, using his police-issued handgun.
Well, this week, the police chief did give an answer to that question, both to city leaders and to News Channel 5. But tonight, a Decherd police investigator shows us department documents that cast doubt over that answer.
News Channel 5's Jason Lamb continues to look into how Ward was hired in this story you will only see on News Channel 5.
Okay.
Not on duty. You can't. Doesn't matter. I am on duty 24/7.
This cop's saying he's on duty 24/7.
Get on the ground!
A month after this happened in Rutherford County, landing former Decherd police officer Matthew Ward an aggravated assault charge.
All right, this is not going to degenerate into this.
A Decherd city alderman started asking questions at a boisterous board meeting this week.
Ross, did you contact this officer's previous employer?
No.
No? Why?
The answer Decherd Police Chief Ross Peterson gave was that they'd only be able to ask his former police department at Fort Walton Beach 2 specific questions.
You'll never be able to ask them. You'll be able to ask them 2 questions. And it would be, did they work there and would you hire them again?
That day, Peterson repeated that to us, saying Ward did not have a liability release filled out. That would have allowed his former employers to answer any other questions without fear of being sued.
It is like, you know, there was no form filled out where we got it notarized where we can ask questions anything different than did you work here and would you rehire that person?
But News Channel 5 has learned there was, in fact, a liability release that would have allowed the department to ask more questions, and Ward signed it. Decherd Sergeant Greg King, in charge of investigations for the department, sent us a picture of the document from Ward's background check file, dated from March of this year, and yes, it was even notarized.
There's been nothing saying we screwed up here. It's been very much what you saw at the meeting. And the public deserves people to be fully vetted before we grant them the power to take away liberty or even life under the color of law and authority.
But is it possible the chief didn't know that form existed before deciding not to check Ward's training history, which we now know contained several red flags from Fort Walton Beach police trainers? Well, King also sent News Channel 5 a copy of the Decherd Police Policy on Background Investigations that says forms authorizing the release of information shall be completed. That policy was issued less than 2 months before Ward applied, and it was signed by Chief Ross Peterson himself.
Get on the ground! Police!
Casting doubt, King says, over the chief's answer to questions about how this could have been prevented. Jason Lamb, News Channel 5.
So far, both Decherd Police Chief Ross Peterson and former officer Matthew Ward have not returned our multiple calls, text messages, and emails for comment on these stories. If they do respond, we will make sure to update you both on air and online.
You told us last week there was not a form filled out, notarized. You told us that on camera, sir.
News Channel 5 did the legwork looking into the past of a Decherd police officer now charged with aggravated assault for holding a driver at gunpoint while off duty and out of his jurisdiction. While News Channel 5 asked for the officer's training history, the Decherd police chief admitted his department did not.
And now tonight, following a series of reports from News Channel 5's Jason Lamb, Decherd city officials tell us their police chief is stepping down. They say Police Chief Ross Peterson turned in his resignation letter today.
News Channel 5's Jason Lamb has followed this case from the very beginning.
He's telling him to get on the ground. He's not doing anything. We need the police.
Ma'am, I'm ready to hold on because you're within the city limits, okay?
On duty. You doesn't matter. I am on duty 24/7.
This cop's saying he's on duty 24/7.
It's been more than a month since the Rutherford County Sheriff's Office says this road rage incident started on I-24 involving former Decherd police officer Matthew Ward, who was off duty and 50 miles from his jurisdiction. Ward now faces an aggravated assault charge and was allowed to resign from the police department. And tonight, Decherd City Attorney Jerry Hood says Decherd Police Chief Ross Peterson will be resigning following a series of reports from News Channel 5 looking into how Ward was hired. We dug into Ward's work history at his previous job as an officer in training at the Fort Walton Beach Police Department in Florida. Through our public records request, we found that his trainers raised red flags, including several low scores in categories like knowledge of criminal procedure and decision-making. But those are records Police Chief Ross Peterson admitted his department never asked for because he said Ward hadn't filled out a liability release, allowing the department to ask detailed questions into his background. But according to police documents one of Decherd's own police sergeants gave us, it appears Ward actually did sign a form that would have allowed that investigation.
But I'm still here to talk to you.
It's something we brought up to the chief yesterday during a wide-ranging 90-minute press conference.
You told us last week there was not a form filled out, notarized.
I did not.
You told us that on camera, sir.
It is like, there was no form filled out where we got it notarized where we can ask questions anything different than did you work here and would you rehire that person? And since he's not actually got an extensive work history in law enforcement, we didn't do that. That's my answer.
Yes, sir.
Did you hear her say that they don't go to me?
He does not know.
You said we didn't have a form that was filled out.
I really didn't think we did.
Before yesterday's press conference, we tried contacting Peterson several times for his side of the story, but he hadn't commented on any of the records we dug up until yesterday.
I've talked to you and you've reached out on my personal cell phone that you got from these people, and I want to answer her question.
I got your cell phone, sir, when you called me.
Oh, my bad.
City officials say Peterson delivered his resignation letter today, though it's unclear when that resignation will become effective or who the next Decherd police chief will be. Jason Lamb, News Channel 5.
We want to let you know that we have tried several times to contact former officer Matthew Ward for any comment that he or his attorney would like to make. We have still not heard back from them. In a statement on their Facebook page, Decherd city officials say, under the current circumstances, it appears to be in everyone's best interest to put this behind us and move forward with a fresh start. The city thanks Mr. Peterson for his service to the city and wishes him well as he moves forward. The city looks forward to moving on and getting back to concentrating on serving the good citizens of the city of Decherd. News Channel 5's Jason Lamb has been digging into the fallout from the I-24 road rage incident involving the off-duty officer. You can read all of Ward's training records we received from Fort Walton Beach Police, look at the liability waiver Ward signed, and watch all of our previous reporting leading up to today. It's all right now at newschannel5.com.